The narrative begins in Seoul, South Korea. At present, Seoul has placed its destiny in the hands of a solitary individual. This man, Jang Shiwan, the guild master of Manhwa, finds himself catching his breath amid the disorderly and dusty terrain. When the dust settles, a figure clad entirely in black emerges, standing before Jang Shiwan's weary form. The onlookers, previously horrified, witness the grim fate of the Manhwa guild. The man in black assumes a combat position, informing Shan that they are the sole survivors. This individual in black is a global public enemy known as Shin Kang-hu. Shan's body trembles, and Jang Shiwan, blaming Shin Kang-hu for initiating senseless conflicts causing widespread suffering, rises in anger. As he vents his frustration, Jang Shiwan accuses Shin Kang-hu of being the source of such meaningless battles. In response, Kang, smirking, questions Jang Shiwan's belief in himself as a harbinger of justice. This catches Jang Shiwan off guard, and he clenches his teeth in anger. Jang Shiwan challenges Shin Kang-hu, asking if he dares speak of justice. His hand emits a red glow, signaling his readiness for a confrontation. His powers intensify, a lightning-like radiance enveloping one side of his body. Yelling that he fights for everyone, Jang Shiwan accuses Shin Kang-hu of constant interference. The distressed crowd witnesses this exchange, and Jang Shiwan continues, questioning Shin Kang-hu's true nature, labeling him as nothing but evil. Jang Shiwan's intense emotions unsettle the onlookers, even bringing a child to tears. Suddenly, the crowd rallies behind Jang Shiwan, cheering louder. Despite the cheers, Jang Shiwan maintains a serious expression. Another blinding red light forms around his hand as he declares to Shin Kang-hu that as long as the crowd supports him, he pledges not to be defeated at any cost. Extending his hand towards his adversary, and channeling every ounce of his power, a swift red light surged rapidly towards Shin Kang-hu. Caught off guard, Shin Kang-hu remained frozen in his position. The ensuing attack triggered a deafening explosion, shrouding the area in smoke, dust, and debris. Even the onlookers had to retreat to avoid the aftermath. Approaching the now kneeling Shin Kang-hu, Shiwan stood in front of him. Shin Kang-hu bore severe injuries, and the crowd erupted in cheers for Jang Shiwan's victory. The onlookers wore expressions of joy and relief. Some expressed unwavering belief in him, while others suggested it was time to put an end to the adversary, chanting for Shin Kang-hu's demise. Fists raised, they chanted louder, urging Shiwan to kill Shin Kang-hu. Shiwan conveyed to Shin Kang-hu that nobody wished for him to live. Once again, he unleashed his power, this time emitting a purple, round light in his hand. Shin Kang-hu, trembling, dared not move. Shiwan informed him that it would be his end at point-blank range. With a blast of power, Shiwan hit Shin Kang-hu, causing one side of his body to bleed, and he coughed up blood upon colliding with the ground. In Shin Kang-hu's final moments, he saw Jang Shiwan standing proudly. Afterward, Shiwan leapt into the air, addressing the crowd merrily. He informed them that their preparations had finally borne fruit, declaring that perfect freedom would descend upon their land. The crowd, now relieved, looked at him with elation. Shan gazed at the now red sky, dark red clouds hovering around him. His body glowed in red, and a faint red light connected him to the clouds. The colors shifted, and everything took on a bloody red hue. Suddenly, a colossal hand emerged from the crimson sky, leaving the crowd in shock and horror. Jang Shiwan, however, smiled, seemingly anticipating this development. The hand began seizing people, inducing panic as they scattered for their lives. Urging everyone to run, they screamed while Shiwan laughed and reveled in the Demon King's descent. Proclaiming it as true peace, Shin Kang-hu, however, mustered the strength to assert that it felt more like genuine tyranny. Jang Shiwan, taken aback, inquired about Shin Kang-hu's survival, encouraging him to open his eyes and witness the unfolding chaos. Exhilarated, Shin Kang-hu announced the just world he had created, leading to the world's abrupt demise. Amidst the darkness, a speck of light glowed, resembling a monitor displaying a message. It read, "Thank you for all the love you have shown on the life of a villain turned savior." A pair of hands diligently typed on a keyboard, and this individual pondered that reader expectations must have been shattered. The world's purported greatest hero, Jiang Xuan, was revealed to be a henchman of the Demon King, and his comrades were known as the 13 Stars, top-level, long-standing evildoers. However, fiction merely mirrored reality. The novel's motif reflected the writer's life as a student, recalling a funeral where the author placed a flower in front of a deceased student. The author drew inspiration from real-life experiences to create the character Xuan, who could unveil the hidden authority behind school violence and the true nature of the world, a power capable of overturning notions of good and evil. Reading the people's comments on the novel, most were dissatisfied with the ending where evil prevailed, solely because the people chose to support the wrong person. This infuriated the author, and he acknowledged that perhaps it couldn't be helped. Closing the browser, he left his computer to settle on his bed. His room already reflected the frustration he felt from crafting a novel that would satisfy his readers. One commenter expressed dissatisfaction with the open ending, adding to the author's vexation. Lying in bed, the author recollected another comment stating he was the type of guy who brags with his arms crossed in real life. These remarks bothered him, and he covered his eyes with his arm. Another comment labeled him a henchman for destroying the reader's world, causing the author to clench his teeth, suppressing his emotions. He realized this wasn't what he intended, reaching a point of no return as he couldn't rewrite anymore. Deciding to sleep it off, the author gradually awoke from deep slumber. Perplexed by the noise, he opened his eyes to find people in uniforms mining the ground. To his surprise, he saw himself in the same blue overall uniform, lying on a stone floor. Suddenly, a man erupted in anger, labeling the crouched figure on the ground as a piece of something. The angry man proceeded to kick the defenseless individual while admonishing him, questioning how dare he, despite Eclipse's grace. The author caught the mention of Eclipse, finding it oddly familiar. As the man continued kicking the person on the ground, the author recalled a student in a similar position from before. This student resembled the crouched guy in front of him. The author seethed with anger that this figure was showing up in his dreams. The furious man seized the crouched individual by his collar, poised to deliver a punch while continuing his barrage of curses. Angrily berating the guy, he insisted that he should keep his useless worker act to himself. As the fist neared the guy's face, everyone froze, witnessing the impending confrontation. Suddenly, a man materialized in front of the author, ready to throw punches. Recognizing the author, he landed several blows, asserting that he knew him as the guy who couldn't last for even a second. The author questioned why his body hurt in a mere dream. Intervening in the violence, another man ordered the aggressor to stop, emphasizing that the author had a long way to go before meeting his quota. Doubting whether it was truly a dream due to its vividness, the author felt the man spit before he turned away, threatening to beat him up someday. The battered guy quickly approached the author, expressing concern and calling him by the name Kong. Confused, Shin Kang-hu looked at his hands, confirming his suspicion. His hand dropped near a body of water, and his body became enveloped in blue light, a manifestation of mana. The mana absorption ability, known as innate mana hypersensitivity, became apparent. Shin Kang-hu realized he could absorb mana at will. Fully aware of his newfound power, he looked at his reflection in the water, confirming that he had become Shin Kang-gu. Laughing in disbelief, he pondered the irony of becoming Kang, of all people. Observing the concerned guy in front of him, Shin Kang-hu deduced that the timeline was approximately 5 years before the ending. Realizing that possessing Jiang Xuan might earn him reverence as the world's hero, he acknowledged that, at this rate, the ending would involve the ascent of the Demon King, saving only the lives of the followers. Aware that he needed to change the ending to avoid a pathetic demise, Shin Kang-hu stood up with the knowledge of how to escape in mind. In that place, a blue gem tumbled to the ground, caught by the possessed Shin Kang-hu. Expecting the real person's past and experiences to influence him, he opened his status window, revealing Shin Kang-hu, an assassin at level 10. As he picked up the gem, he knelt and cursed, realizing his low stamina. In his mind, he regretted giving Shin Kang-hu a weakness like innate mana hypersensitivity merely because he was an anti-hero. To aid himself, he drew a star symbol on the ground using the gem. His friend approached, concerned, asking if he was okay. RMC swiftly erased the symbol with his foot, downplaying it as nothing. When his friend suggested a break, Shin Kang-hu laughed, stating that if the organization allowed breaks based on workers' conditions, they wouldn't be in that place. The location was a detention center created by a criminal organization called Eclipse, forcing rookie hunters who could use mana to work like slaves and mining mana stones. Shin Kang-hu assured his friend not to worry about him and to focus on mining. When his friend questioned him, Shin Kang-hu completed the sentence, stating he was thinking of escaping. However, he shifted the topic, urging his friend to work before getting beaten by the guards. He warned against reckless actions, emphasizing the need to continue their work. Reflecting on his actions, Shin Kang-hu believed he had done what he could by warning his friend. The friend was a character inspired by a student he knew. Shin Kang-hu acknowledged that he couldn't make changes to the novel yet, all for the sake of his escape. The mind buzzed with activity as workers toiled away. Shin Kang-hu, pushing a cart brimming with gems, suddenly turned his attention to a distant groan of pain. His eyes widened as he witnessed his friend being beaten by a guard. The guard announced to the workers that the newbies had drawn attention, revealing a crazy bastard attempting to escape. Pulling out his blade, the guard demanded everyone to watch closely, proclaiming that the guy would be held responsible for his actions. With a swift stab to the back, the guard continued his assault, causing shock among the workers, including Shin Kang-hu. The guard taunted the guy, stabbing him repeatedly while the workers averted their eyes from the spilled blood. Shin Kang-hu, however, maintained his gaze. The groans from his friend persisted until his life met its end. Shin Kang-hu stood in front of the lifeless corpse, silently reiterating his earlier warning about avoiding reckless actions. The guard, sensing Shin Kang-hu's silence, suggested he should act up like last time, expressing the freedom to kill him. In response, Shin Kang-hu nonchalantly replied that he couldn't care less about the guy dying. The guard, taken aback, shifted the topic, with Shin Kang-hu requesting permission to use the restroom. Assuming he had soiled himself, the guard ridiculed him, agreeing with a mocking laugh. Shin Kang-hu remained silent as they headed towards the restroom. Once there, the guard granted Shin Kang-hu 1 minute, cautioning that any longer would mean instant death. Walking inside, Shin Kang-hu observed several corpses on the ground. As he continued his search, he recalled that what he sought should be somewhere nearby. The guard continued counting, serving as a timer, and fortunately, Shin Kang-hu found what he was searching for. Using the blood he discovered, he promptly drew on the ground. The guard continued counting, and with 18 seconds left, Shin Kang-hu completed the drawing, a circle with a star in the middle. The drawing glowed as Shin Kang-hu began speaking to the circle, expressing awareness that someone was watching him, and he knew the entity went crazy for trials and depression. Interrupted by the guard, who reminded him of the remaining seconds, Shin Kang-hu continued conversing with the circle. He asked if the entity was curious about how a low-level like him could summon it. Shin Kang-hu knew that if he stayed longer, the entity, like in the novel, would appear later, warning him that delaying even a day further would push the world's hope out of reach. Persuading himself, Shin Kang-hu was aware that summoning the entity would make him the entertainment for it. He assured the circle that he was the only person qualified to use the ability effectively, smiling wide in anticipation of the summoned entity's appearance. The main constellation, who had a contract with Shin Kang-hu in the novel, was known as Dimension Lutter. This entity referred to Shin Kang-hu as an insolent bastard but allowed him to borrow its power momentarily, daring him to prove himself. Shin Kang-hoo, who confidently responded that the entity should just stand back and watch. A screen materialized in front of him, displaying the details of Dimension Lutter. At that critical moment, the guard forcefully opened the door, angrily yelling at Shin Kang-hoo. However, as he entered the room filled with smoke, he was met with emptiness. The guard, visibly distressed, suddenly spotted a shadow amidst the dissipating smoke. A window screen materialized, displaying changes in Shin Kang-hoo's status. All of his skills were upgraded to maximum proficiency, including his only skill, short distance leap, which swiftly advanced to the maximum level. Taking advantage of the upgrade, Shin Kang-hoo swiftly advanced toward the enraged guard and immediately activated traverse teleportation, disappearing from sight. The guard, furious, searched the room but found no trace of Shin Kang-hoo. To his shock, Shin Kang-hoo, who was already behind him, swiftly stabbing him in the neck. Cursing and questioning, the guard released his neck as blood gushed out, ultimately falling to the ground. Shin Kang-hoo, who looked at the fallen guard and expressed gratitude, thanking him because the guard unknowingly helped him decide to leave the place that day. Dimension Lutter praised Shin Kang-hoo, who, announcing that the contract was complete. Shin Kang-hoo breathed a sigh of relief, then took the guard's knife, believing that his actions had avenged his friend. Placing the weapon in his bag, a system notification informed him that the weapon had been registered. Shin Kang-hoo, who vowed not to look back from that point on. The night sky bathed in the glow of a full moon witnessed the guard lying in a pool of blood as Shin Kang-hoo walked away. A canister of gasoline spilled inside the room, and Shin Kang-hoo ensured its even distribution. The first step of his plan involved disguising himself, and for that, he needed to secure a rank 2 warden's uniform. Shin Kang-hoo, who ignited a lighter for the second step, arson, dropping it to the ground. Walking away, he left the room engulfed in flames, proceeding with his third step, to escape through the front gate. Outside, the guards panicked at the sight of the fire. One guard angrily demanded to know who did it, while another urged him to call the fire department. People scattered, rushing to vehicles. One guard instructed following the manual and directed everyone to head to the crematorium. The vehicle's door closed tightly, and the last guard instructed the driver to move quickly. Peering into the rearview mirror, the driver asked Shin Kang-hoo, who, sitting in the back seat, about the whereabouts of the warden. Shin Kang-hoo explained that someone had just escaped from Building 18, running through the fence on the northwest side. The driver, shocked by the news, apologized, and Shin Kang-hoo, who urged them to depart. Aware that the path northwest led to Chungmong Mountain, Shin Kang-hoo recognized it as a seemingly good escape route, dark, unguarded, and complicated. However, in reality it was brimming with traps set by Eclipse, making it the most dangerous route. Leveraging information known only to the wardens, Shin Kang-hoo adopted a serious expression as he narrated the story of their pursuit of the escaping person. He emphasized the assumption that the fugitive would head to Chungmyeong Mountain, suggesting their task was to bring back the corpse. The driver acknowledged, stating, "Understood, sir." At the fence, the guard yelled, "Warang," and the driver replied with, "Cigarettes," as if using a secret code. The guard signaled an all clear and opened the fence, prompting Shin Kang-hoo to think he was finally getting past the troublesome barrier. Driving through the forest, the driver engaged Shin Kang-hoo in small talk, assuming he was tired from recent concerns in Building 18. Shin Kang-hoo agreed and remarked that killing the people would be easier since the inmates wouldn't listen. The driver enthusiastically concurred, criticizing the inmates as pieces of shit who were hunters only in name, but actually just losers. Shin Kang-hoo, who took note of how the driver referred to the inmates as pieces of shit. In the passenger seat, another guard initiated a conversation, asking Shin Kang-hoo how long he had been on duty in Building 18. Shin Kang-hoo, wary of this guard, responded that he arrived the day before yesterday. The guard expressed suspicion, stating that Unit 9, where Shin Kang-hoo claimed to be working, didn't exist. Shin Kang-hu confirmed his affiliation with Unit 9, prompting the guard to suggest that the unit must have been formed the day before yesterday. Caught off guard, Shin Kang-hu's vehicle continued to traverse the forest path. Smiling, Shin Kang-hu responded to the guard's suspicion, gripping his blade tightly. Without warning, he sliced the guard on the passenger seat from behind, causing blood to forcefully spurt. The driver, shocked and horrified, heard Shin Kang-hu, who explained that the sole purpose of Unit 9 was to clean up individuals like the guards. The driver, reacting abruptly, stepped on the brakes, causing Shin Kang-hu, who in the back seat, to lose balance and lunge forward. Simultaneously, the headless corpse in the passenger seat also lunged, shattering the front glass and ejecting onto the dirt face down. The driver turned to Shin Kang-hu, who, cursing and releasing flames, threw a fireball. However, Shin Kang-hu evaded the danger, casting a sidelong glance at the now ruined roof with a hole in the wreckage. Angry and feeling tricked, the driver unleashed a more powerful attack, raining down fire directly at Shin Kang-hu, who, smirking, the driver suddenly noticed Shin Kang-hu, who threw the side mirror but lost sight when Shin Kang-hu left his line of sight. Surprising the driver, Shin Kang-hu pierced his blade through the side glass of the passenger seat. Without hesitation, he glided his blade on the driver's neck with force, penetrating the window of the driver's seat. The driver, now with a horrified expression, looked at Shin Kang-hu. Swiftly, Shin Kang-hu pulled out his sword, producing an agonizing, cooking-like sound as he severed the connection to the driver's neck. The driver fell out of the car with a haunting scream. Out of the blue, Shin Kang-hu felt a pang of pain in his head, wondering if it resulted from using too much mana. His attention shifted to the light behind him, and upon checking the side mirror, he noticed an incoming car. Cursing, he considered if it was the police on patrol, an unexpected factor he had not anticipated. Shin Kang-hu, who knew this would be the last hurdle he faced. Leaping out of the car, he slid down a cliff, anticipating his fall, and landed safely on the ground. Taken aback, he heard someone express admiration for his ability to kill wardens and escape. Facing the man holding an axe-like weapon, Shin Kang-hu noted the red mark above the man's head, signifying a hunter in a contract with a constellation. Observing with a serious expression, Shin Kang-hu wondered about the man's power. A status screen appeared, revealing the man's ability to track mana. Understanding how the man easily found him, Shin Kang-hu, instead of fear, smiled, considering it a great opportunity. The man, baffled for some reason, stared at Shin Kang-hu, who could see the constellation the man was contracted with and the red mark above his head. Opening his status screen, Shin Kang-hu noticed a third clause indicating that by killing another hunter, he could loot them of their contracted constellation. Glancing back at the smug expression of the hunter, a status window revealed that Shin Kang-hu could indeed loot the target. Grinning, Shin Kang-hu felt the thrill of using the constellation loot for the first time. However, considering the man's contract with the constellation, Shin Kang-hu suspected he was at least level 100. Knowing he needed to avoid a head-to-head fight, Shin Kang-hu devised a plan. He started running, aiming to draw in the man before launching an attack. Commenting on Shin Kang-hu, whose behavior, the man mocked him as a low-level scum. As Shin Kang-hu rapidly ran towards the trees, the man activated his power, turning his eyes blue. He claimed nothing could escape his sight and scanned the area, asking Shin Kang-hu to reveal his hiding spot. Activating his vision again, the man noticed a trace of Shin Kang-hu and swiftly locked in on his target. Shin Kang-hu seemed to be hiding behind a tree, prompting the man to laugh and throw his axe-like weapon, cleanly cutting down the tree. To the man's surprise, Shin Kang-hu had vanished, and suddenly he felt a sharp pain in his body. Shin Kang-hu, catching the man off guard, had instantly pierced his neck, leaving him no chance to react. Shin Kang-hu, who revealed that it was a mistake to underestimate his opponent. Slicing the man's neck, blood gushed out, and the man fell to the ground. A status window appeared, indicating that Shin Kang-hu had killed the target and seized his contract with Skillful Connector. Shin Kang-hu realized that Skillful Connector was under the control of Dimension Looter and unable to escape, and all its abilities had transferred to him. Breathing heavily, Shin Kang-hu looked at his screen, clicking the arrow down to learn more about his stats. It displayed that his Traverse Teleportation, Mana Tracking ability, and Night Vision were already at max level. Happy about his success, Shin Kang-hu activated the Mana Tracking Vision. Scanning the area, he concluded that there were no more pursuers nearby. Suddenly, a sharp pain coursed through his body, causing him to cough and fall to his knees. Trembling, he tried to hold himself up using his sword. His condition worsened as he coughed up blood, wondering if he had pushed himself too far. Recalling what he did, Shin Kang-hu realized that he had suppressed his mana hypersensitivity to hide his traces from the man. To achieve this, he had poured all his mana into a stone and threw it away to prevent automatic absorption of the surrounding mana, revealing his location. Although this tactic successfully lured the man and led to his demise, getting closer to the man required using a short-distance leap, resulting in Shin Kang-hu's current weakened state. Aware that pushing himself further could lead to death, he planned to immediately find a safe place. Walking through the forest, Shin Kang-hu observed the night sky transitioning into a bright morning. Surveying his surroundings, he realized that what he had anticipated had finally arrived. Turning his attention to a truck transporting sand for purifying mana stones, he dashed towards it and leapt from a cliff, landing safely on the sand below. Reflecting on the events where he killed 3 guards during his escape, an occurrence that didn't happen in the novel, he considered ensuring that the future remained unchanged while he grew stronger. Lying back on the truck, Shin Kang-hu contemplated his insignificance in the world and doubted that his actions would alter the course of the future. Resting as the truck traversed the highway, he smiled, appreciating the beauty of the scenery. Outside the building, a conversation ensued about catching new workers to mine mana stones, dismissing the escape as inconsequential. Shin Kang-hu, grappling with the pain, entered a phone booth, recognizing that his stamina struggled to recover due to excessive mana use. Meanwhile, in the building, a man received information about the escapee, a level 10 assassin with an elusive residence, capable of defeating level 45 and 55 opponents with a constellation, leaving the others surprised by the escape's cunning strategy. Returning to Shin Kang-hu, the person on the other end answered the phone as he informed them that he was in front of Dijon Station, requesting a favor. Meanwhile, inside the building, the man found the escape intriguing, anticipating that it would evolve into an entertaining hunt. Continuing the story, Seoyeon provided Shin Kang-hu with clean clothes and mentioned that she had placed a decent amount of cash and a hacked cell phone in the pocket, intending for it to be untraceable. Shin Kang-hu thanked her and expressed gratitude for treating him even though he approached her out of the blue. Seoyeon addressed him as Allah and inquired about what had happened to him. Shin Kang-hu shared the truth about being kidnapped by Eclipse and explained that low-level hunters like him often became prey in monostone mines. Seoyeon was surprised and asked if he had been dragged into a mana stone mine, noting that Eclipse was notorious for kidnapping hunters. Shin Kang-hu acknowledged the danger and emphasized that mining monostones was essential, making low-level hunters vulnerable to others. Despite the circumstances, he trusted Seoyeon and contacted her, knowing that she was still in love with Shin Kang-hu. Seoyeon was overcome with guilt and blamed herself for not keeping in touch with Shin Kang-hu more frequently, believing that things might have been different if she had. Shin Kang-hu reassured her, stating that she had cared for him enough, and he didn't want her to get involved with him further due to the potential risks from Eclipse. He warned her about the possibility of Eclipse tracking her down. Seoyeon, now a level 150 veteran in a contract with a constellation, expressed her readiness to handle any threats. Shin Kang-hu remained firm in his stance, advising her to use her power for herself. Seoyeon then provided him with resources for his journey, including clean clothes, cash, and an untraceable cell phone. Kang, observing how her guild operates in a shady realm, made Realization Man character aware that a guild suited her both back then and presently. She inquired if he harbored no intentions of affiliating with their guild. She began expressing the possibility of reverting to the way things were. In a serious tone, he urged her not to linger in the past. Tears welled in her eyes as she concealed her face, and tears dripped down. In agreement, she acknowledged his wisdom, explaining that she had addressed his request. One of her acquaintances holds a leadership position, and the specifics are on the phone. She bid him farewell with a warm smile, advising him to take care and stay well. In response, he expressed gratitude, hoping she stays well too. Shin Kang-hoo hailed a taxi, instructing the driver to go to Taejun Station. The driver inquired about turning on the radio, and Shin Kang-hoo stated that it wasn't an issue. On the radio, news circulated about Young the Guild assassinating the entire White Rose mercenary corps, delving into details about Judgment Day. Shin Kang-hoo recollected how Judgment Day emerged suddenly and quietly. In another vehicle, a man drove, detecting an unusual scenario during the weekend: no cars in sight. He queried if his partner also noticed. Upon turning to the passenger side, his lover's facial skin peeled off, revealing a visible skull. Shocked and horrified, the man screamed as a Grim Reaper suddenly appeared, positioning its scythe on the man's head. Multiple Grim Reapers roamed the city. A reporter attempted to cover the incident from a building in Gangnam, Seoul, revealing the sky turning purple from a considerable distance. This woman was on the brink of alerting everyone to the invasion of monsters in the region, but she couldn't complete her sentence. Abruptly, she was dragged away by one of the monsters. During this chaotic period, mysterious creatures and dungeons with peculiar skies emerged. In the midst of the mayhem, those who gained powers were referred to as hunters. The inexplicable situation led people to believe that divine judgment had descended. The hunters, who initially hunted monsters, turned towards humanity in the name of gods, but their efforts were in vain. A woman, attempting to escape from these hunters to save herself, found herself cornered. She pleaded with the men not to harm her, but one of them dismissed her concerns, assuring her that a single strike would end it all painlessly. However, at that critical moment, the savior of the world arrived. He blocked the sword with his hand, blood dripping down his arm. He asked the woman if she was okay. This marked the appearance of Jang Shiwan, who emerged as a central figure in Seoul. It was during this time that he founded the powerful guild known as the Manhwa Guild. Shin Kang-hoo deduced that this might be why people sought refuge in oh-so-safe Seoul. As Shin Kang-hoo continued to listen to the radio, he learned about the White Rose Corps being tracked down by the hunter named Jang Shiwan. They were accused of plotting a terror attack at exit 11 of Gangnam Station in Seoul. Khan, however, was aware that the White Rose Corps wasn't a terrorist organization. The cab driver expressed excitement upon hearing that Jang Shiwan had eradicated the entire terrorist organization. Khan, well informed, knew that the terror attacks weren't orchestrated by the White Rose Corps. The cab driver expressed pride in Jang Shiwan being a Korean hunter, attributing it to a source of great national pride. Shin Kang-hoo understood that it was all part of Jang Shiwan's own narrative. Engaging in conversation with the cab driver, he mentioned that his son had recently awakened and was planning to join Jang Shiwan's guild. Shin Kang-hoo realized that going against Jang Shiwan by exposing the truth would likely cast him as a villain, with people cheering for his execution. Upon arriving at the destination, Shin Kang-hoo thought that becoming a commissioned worker who receives jobs from a mercenary corps would be the best course of action. A woman named Lee Yeren greeted him, mentioning that she knew about him from Seoyeon. Introducing himself as Jangsu, Shin Kang-hoo decided not to reveal much about himself. Lee Yeren, however, had a file with a variety of job offers for him. When Shin Kang-hoo straightforwardly requested something with a good reward, starting with the hard ones first, Lee Yeren was surprised. She mentioned hearing that he was at level 10, and Shin Kang-hoo confidently affirmed it. Amused, Lee Yeren burst into laughter, emphasizing the recklessness of too much courage. She warned him about the dangers and asked if he intended to make her take care of his corpse. Undeterred, Shin Kang-hoo asserted that being a mercenary is about having skills regardless of the level. Checking Li Yaren's status window, he learned about her constellation, the Observer of Chaos, endowed with the ability to distort and block sight. Li Yaren, a mage and buffer, had made a contract with a mid to upper level constellation, crafted to one day face off against the 13 stars. Shin Kang-hoo aimed to win her trust, acknowledging that being a mercenary is indeed about having skills, regardless of one's level. She sighed and lectured him about the difference between reality and spirit. Shin Kang-hoo responded that prejudice and truth are also distinct, earning a smile from her. Deciding to assess his skills, they faced each other outside a building. Li Yaren created a ball of green light in her hand and explained that she would judge one thing, whether he could avoid her skill. Seeking clarification, Shin Kang-hoo asked if she wanted to test his ability to physically protect himself. Li Yaren confirmed, elaborating that dodging would indicate the ability to create opportunities for attack. Shin Kang-hoo covered his eyes, noticing her creation of puppets using fog, known as the fog tracker. Not a lethal attack, but traces would remain if he couldn't dodge, ending the test. Ready for the challenge, Shin Kang-hoo received a heads-up as Li Yaren started. The puppet fairy advanced, and Kang, watching its movement, seized a great opportunity. Covered in green light upon impact, smoke scattered in the area. When the smoke cleared, Li Yaren was caught off guard to find Shin Kang-hoo missing. Sensing him, she turned and saw him running above her. Baffled, she couldn't comprehend him running on the side of the building, especially jumping that high. Observing his proficiency in the assassin's basic skill, short-distance leap, puzzled her. Li Yaren grinned, realizing he wasn't bluffing. Preparing for another attack, she asked if he could dodge again and launched a powerful strike towards him. The puppet advanced at incredible speed, nearly catching him, but Kang, unfazed, skillfully dropped onto his back, narrowly avoiding the attack. A bright green light erupted as Li Yaren covered herself, groaning in frustration. Shin Kang-hoo had dodged again. Looking at where Shin Kang-hoo was, Li Yaren wondered if he had used Traverse's teleportation while lost in thought. Sneaking behind her, Shin Kang-hoo surprised her with his blade near her neck, suggesting they should end the test. Li Yaren smirked, acknowledging his observation of her speed and realizing he wasn't the mercenary commander for nothing. Kang asked if he passed, received confirmation and was granted level 50 commissions. Satisfied, he sheathed his sword. A white car drove through the city, and Li Yaren, glancing at Shin Kang-hoo through the rearview mirror, asked if he was interested in bulletproof glass. She shared that there had been an annoying gunman following her lately. He inquired about it, and she excitedly shared that she had been receiving a lot of attention from the Eclipse bastards. Shin Kang-hoo, aware of the turf war, thought, "This lady's crazy." A puppet handed her a piece of paper, and she explained that the commission involved tracking a wanted criminal. As the commissioner, she mentioned that the commission would benefit him. Handing him the paper, she revealed that the task was in Gonggi-do-san, an open dungeon known as the Abandoned Ruin. The target, Kim Mukun, a level 50 mage, needed to be retrieved along with a third-rank item called Vasa's shoes. He questioned if Kim Mukun needed to be brought back alive, and she clarified that he could be killed due to the numerous civilian deaths caused by him. Executing him on the spot would be appreciated by the Hunter Security Agency. Shin Kang-hoo, with a big grin, informed her that he would start immediately. As they arrived at the location, Li Yaren mentioned that Kim Mukun would likely be hidden in a corner, making it challenging due to the large size of the place. Shin Kang-hoo thought it wasn't a bad place for his debut, especially since it was a spot he used as a hideout in Noville, and he was familiar with it. Additionally, there were useful middle bosses in the area. Standing amidst the scene, Shin Kang-hoo observed as some monsters began to appear. Recognizing their presence, he unsheathed his weapon and using it, cut his palm. The monsters instantly became ferocious and aggressive, rushing towards him. Employing traverse teleportation, he dodged the monsters' attacks, and with a short-distance leap, he swiftly countered, repeating the sequence until the enemies were completely wiped out. Recalling Li Yaren's instructions to retrieve the commissioned item and then do as he pleased, Shin Kang-hu noticed a humanoid monster wielding blades in each hand. Reflecting on his conversation with Li Yaren about the reward he desired, a dungeon raid license for dungeons with many middle and last bosses, he smiled upon encountering the monster. Addressing the monster as Ventus, he greeted him warmly. Observing a status window above Ventus, Shin Kang-hu noted the information indicating he could loot his target. In response, Ventus retorted, "I'll kill you," prompting Shin Kang-hu to taunt the monster, urging it not to just stand there yapping. Swiftly, Ventus leapt towards Shin Kang-hu, multiplying in the process, surprising him with its unexpected ability. Shin Kang-hu closely observed the movements as multiple Ventus closed in on him. As one Ventus leapt to stab him, Shin Kang-hu skillfully evaded using Traverse's teleportation. Recognizing that the attack possessed enormous power but could be pinpointed, he employed a short-distance leap, rushing toward the real Ventus and stabbing it in the abdomen. Caught off guard, Ventus's blood gushed out, and it instinctively counterattacked. Shin Kang-hu, utilizing his traverse teleportation, skillfully evaded the attack and positioned himself behind Ventus. Aware that Ventus's close combat skills were crude at best, Shin Kang-hu kicked the back of Ventus's knee, causing it to kneel to the ground. Equipping his weapon, Shin Kang-hu poised himself to strike Ventus. Focusing on the vulnerable spot between Ventus's neck and shoulder, Shin Kang-hu thrust his blade with precision. Ventus's eyes widened in pain as Shin Kang-hu continued to drive his sword deeper into the flesh. With a forceful pull, Shin Kang-hu extracted his sword, causing more blood to gush from Ventus's dissipating body. A status window promptly appeared, informing Shin Kang-hu that he had acquired the illusion skill from his target. Breathless and visibly exhausted after the encounter, Shin Kang-hu surveyed the area where Ventus had vanished, revealing a dropped item. Noticing a glowing stone, Shin Kang-hu remained unaware that someone in a nearby building was observing him through a telescope. The individual spying on Shin Kang-hu, excited by the rare item called Solatium, discussed the unexpected success with a man beside them. The man, identified as Jo Young-jae, the guardian of Ozin and rank 3rd, saw Shin Kang-hu in the market earlier, purchasing items like Severo brisket, cobalt blood, and anesthetics for monsters. To Jo Young-jae, it suggested Shin Kang-hu might be planning to hunt monsters in the dungeon and engage in farming. Continuing to observe Shin Kang-hu, they marveled at his skills, with the other person acknowledging they hadn't seen him around before. Jo Young-jae expressed his skepticism, feeling that Shin Kang-hu, as a skilled assassin, seemed out of place in a dungeon of that level. The woman attempted to flatter her boss, Jo Young-jae, suggesting that Shin Kang-hu was no match for him. Proposing the idea of forcibly bringing Shin Kang-hu to Jo Young-jae, she expressed confidence in Shin Kang-hu's bones being easily broken. However, Jo Young-jae dismissed the notion, opting for a plan to let Shin Kang-hu exhaust himself, making it easier for them to follow and loot afterward. The trio found joy in this strategy of waiting for Shin Kang-hu to tire out. Meanwhile, Shin Kang-hu focused on his screen, confirming his advancement to level 16. Anticipating the next basic skill at level 20, he decided to allocate all his points to stamina. Acknowledging that managing his innate mana hip sensitivity eliminated the need for points in mana, he chewed on a solatium leaf for its calming and pain-relieving effects, effectively suppressing his mana hip sensitivity. Shin Kang-hu recognized solatium as a rare item, challenging to mass-produce, with cultivation knowledge residing in a person located at Ground Zero, formerly known as DMZ. Planning to carefully prepare for the journey, he was grateful that his hip sensitivity didn't overwhelm him during the recent fight, preventing instant death. Shin Kang-hu sighed, realizing the challenges ahead, and resolved to accumulate a significant amount of money for his preparations. Meanwhile, Li Yeren continued to drive, noting that until a year ago, the call quality was better, but it had progressively worsened. The person on the other end mentioned that there might be little they could do, especially if she was associated with Eclipse or Black Lion. They anticipated that the situation would deteriorate further. Acknowledging the challenges, Li Yeren assured them that she was okay and had grown accustomed to living with the constant feeling of being watched, especially after getting involved with Eclipse. As she spoke, Li Yeren noticed a car waiting on the other side of the road. Her expression turned serious, and she explained her ability to navigate the world with a sense of vigilance. Despite being understaffed, she continued driving, skillfully evading the car that attempted to impede her progress. The person on the line asked if she could recommend a hunter, but Li Yeren expressed uncertainty, wondering if she could find one to suit his preferences. She commented on the red halo above the head of the person she was currently talking to, addressing him as Mr. Zhang Xiwan. Li Yeren and Zhang Xiwan discussed changing their standards for nurturing lower-level hunters. Yeren mentions a particular hunter but suggests giving them more time before making a decision. Xiwan expresses trust in Yeren's recommendations, despite past unfortunate incidents. Yeren assures Xiwan that she will keep an eye on the mentioned hunter and update him if they prove suitable. Xiwan then shares inside information about crime syndicates, intending to send it through secure mail soon. Zhang Xiwan expresses his willingness to help Li Yeren with information whenever she needs. He reflects on the need for talent in their Yunhua guild. In another scene, a man recommended by Yeren gets trapped by a group of people. Xiwan mentions treating Yeren well if she sends someone good. The call ends, and Yeren expresses frustration about expecting too much from someone who just got their first commission. The scene shifts to Shin Kanghu, hinting at a boss. Kanghu stabs the boss, revealed to be a middle boss named Ibria. The boss attacks with an abduction skill, but Kanghu uses illusion magic to dodge, exploiting the skill's wind-up weakness according to his thoughts. Shin Kanghu skillfully uses illusion magic and traverse teleportation to evade attacks from the boss, showcasing his agility. He summons a weapon and defeats the boss with a precise stab. System notifications indicate his victory and a level up. Kanghu decides to allocate his stats to stamina again. He receives notifications about looting the boss's skill, abduction skill proficiency reaching the maximum level, and leveling up. He contemplates the potential uses of the new skill. In a practice session with the abduction skill, Kanghu attracts his sword from a distance, realizing its versatility. Spectators, including Zhou Youngji's mate, observe his skill and express admiration for his bravery. Youngjae, astonished, acknowledges Kanghu's assassin abilities in defeating Ibria without a tanker. Zhou Youngji's mate suggests targeting Shin Kanghu while he's raising skill proficiency, but Youngjae insists on waiting until he gets tired. Youngjae shouts at his mates to follow the plan, and they agree. The scene shifts to Kim Mukyeon, who receives conditional approval from Black Lion to join the organization in exchange for providing insider information on Blue Eyes to Li Yeren's mercenary corps. Kim Mukyeon, sitting on a corpse, sees this as an opportunity to make a move. Shin Kanghu arrives at the location where Kim Mukyeon is staying. Mukyeon senses Kanghu's presence and remarks that another potential target has arrived. Kanghu confronts Mukyeon, who summons deadly monsters, declaring it's time to fight. So what do you think about Kim Mukyeon? Will Shin Kanghu defeat Kim Mukyeon? Comment down below. See you in the next episode.